Hey, I wanted to talk for a moment about why our whole culture globally is dominated by narcissists and how we all create that and how we can actually all uncreate it if we want to. And the way that the domination of narcissists happens is very simple if you think back to high school. Because once you enter puberty, you start to individuate. As a small child, you're more or less just part of your family. But you know this, when you get to be a teenager, you start to individuate. You start to ask, who am I? And you start to take on personality traits that are more unique. And there are certain kinds of personality traits. So some people become more withdrawn. So their personality is to be inward, pensive, in books, to have one-on-one conversations, but not much more than that. We sometimes call that introvert, Some people become bullying, aggressive. They dominate. If it's healthy, it's a quality of positive leadership, but it can also be cruel. Some people become what we would later call a codependent personality type, which means all my pleasure comes from serving you. There are lots of different ways of measuring this. There's the Enneagram, there's Briggs-Myers, all kinds of things. But one of the personality types that we develop when we become teenagers is wanting a lot of attention. It's just a kind of personality. Look at me, I've got things to say, look at me. And very often, this tendency, which is it's not a pathology. Narcissistic personality disorder means you've got problems, but a narcissistic personality type is just a kind of personality. Everyone has a kind of personality. So the kind of personality that's like, look at me, look how great I am, look, I wrote this blog, I'm making this video for you now, right? Might have given you a little clue about my personality type there. So that kind of personality craves attention. And at high school, that kind of personality is going to strive to become the whatever they call that, the class president. What do they call that in high school? What is that name for that? The head of, the homecoming queen or king or something. They become the head of this club, the head of that club. They go on to university, they want to act in the plays because they feed on attention. Look at me, I'm great. That's just the personality type. I want to shine. I want to sparkle. I want to be great. And of course, because not everybody has that personality type, other people will go, oh, good. Let me focus on you. Let me focus on you. Let me give you love. Let me give you attention, because that kind of personality type wants to find somebody else to lift up. So now wind forward so that we're now in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and you can see society as we have it. People who rise up to become loud politicians, or anybody really wanting to make a lot of noise, probably started off having a leaning towards narcissism, towards wanting attention in high school. And all the rest of us who listen and follow are probably the kind of people who in high school tended to look to other people for leadership. Now, all that would be okay. We could kind of get by like that, and we have in the past, if people with narcissistic personalities were benevolent. Somebody who wants to shine, but really is inspired by the good of the whole, that's great. That's like a benevolent king. That worked in the past. But sadly, today, narcissism has become an end in itself. It's not wanting attention to create goodness for everybody. It's wanting attention because there's an insatiable greed for attention. And you might, off the top of your head, be able to think of one or two or more global leaders today, people who get a lot of press, who are really fed just by the craving for attention of any kind. Telling the truth has gone out the window. Trying to create harmonious outcome out the window. Creating a sustainable future for our children and grandchildren out the window, even though some of these leaders actually have children and grandchildren. Doesn't matter, just attention for me. It's a craving. And it's easy for us to blame. And then what we sometimes try and do is throw out that one. Oh, that one's terrible. Let's put another narcissist in their place, right? Oh, this person craving attention, that's no good. Let's get this one instead and hope that's better. It's not really going to work. Because the very imbalance of narcissism and feeding narcissism is just going to perpetuate an imbalance of power. Now, luckily, I'm really glad to see that my friends in their 20s and 30s, and I'm a little strange like that, I'm very kind of immature, I suppose. Although I'm in my early 60s, I actually feel like about 30. Most of my friends are in their 30s. And I've noticed people in their 20s and 30s do this much less. There's much more of a we mentality and less of a need to quote or listen to other people, which is good. It's like a beehive mentality. Beehives, although they've got a queen, the queen is not really a queen. She's just an egg layer. The hive operates as one unit. It takes decisions together. It's amazing. We have I can see our hives just out the window. The bees all do things together. There's not one leader. And that's what's happening more. But that's what we can lean into now and realize that the imbalance in our culture of narcissists and codependents looking to leadership from narcissists actually doesn't allow us to have the best possible future. It doesn't allow us to all contribute with our brilliance. So there's a couple of things I want to suggest that we could all think about to redress the narcissist codependent imbalance. One is to recognize this imbalance is not just created by power-hungry narcissists. It's also created every time you set someone up as a leader, whether it's a spiritual leader or a political leader or anytime you quote somebody else as knowing more than you do, even if they're really cool, like Eckhart Tolle or Byron Katie or whoever, anytime you start quoting people, this person knows the truth, you've actually separated yourself from your own source of wisdom. And it's more convenient to be able to go, oh, just share that, copy that. But actually, if you realize that is an abdication, is a disconnection from yourself, you maybe lean a little bit more into listening to the source of wisdom within yourself. The second thing we can all do, both narcissists and codependents, is to recognize the ultimate truth of the hive. That we actually, in reality, we all are going to thrive or collapse together. I have a tendency, my personality type is towards narcissism, and I know from personal experience it doesn't make you happy to crave attention. It leaves you feeling isolated. It doesn't allow you to relax into a feeling of community. I work a lot with narcissists because I work with people who are wanting to make a difference to the world. So I work with people who crave attention, and I see that it's not the happiest people who do that. So nobody wins in that narcissist codependent imbalance, neither in personal relationships nor globally. And the simple solution from both sides is to just find a way. This is the key to the whole thing, is to find a way to recognize softly, non-dogmatically, to recognize the inevitable intelligence beyond the human mind. And you can do that in a gazillion ways. We've got a garden outside where you plant these little seeds and incredibly beautiful plants emerge out of these little seeds. It was not a human being in Silicon Valley who created that. The wings of a butterfly, there's complex patterns of geometry and beauty everywhere in nature. There's incredible synchronicities happen all the time. You only have to open your eyes a little bit past the chatter of the mental realm created by human activity. If you just open your eyes, spend a day in nature, and you quickly relax into recognizing the inherent beauty and intelligence in the natural world, in the non-human made world. When you recognize that, the whole narcissistic codependent imbalance relaxes. As a narcissist, you realize my self-importance is really kind of absurd. Relative to the power that is really making all this happen, my emphasis on me is kind of ridiculous. And I've, in my old age, I've learned that a little more, that my tendency to puff up and want to be at the front of the room, it's just ridiculous. It's just posturing. And you learn to compassionately laugh at yourself. But equally, if your tendency is to look to someone else for leadership, the more that we can relax into recognizing the intelligence, the creativity, the beauty beyond human intelligence that was running the show just fine for millions and millions of years before Homo sapiens even existed, and was still running the show pretty much entirely before the Industrial Revolution and human beings started to have this capacity to have a much bigger impact. That intelligence is what's created everything beautiful. And if your tendency is to give power away, which is just another personality type, you can use that same I hand it over, instead of handing it over to a politician or a religious leader or something, hand it over to the big power that gives us life, which means actually some form of prayer. You don't have to pray dogmatically, like, you can pray saying, I have no idea who you are. I have no idea if you're male or female, or if it even applies to you. I have no idea if you even understand my language. I have no idea if, in fact, you're me at a deeper level. I don't know who I'm praying to, but I pray anyway. I pray and I hand over all of my life to something beyond my understanding. And when all of us do that, whether you're in the small part of the population that tends to want to grab the limelight, or whether you're in the larger part of the population that tends to want to give away the limelight, when we all of us hand our attention over to something bigger than the human, then together we evolve into a hive mentality.